Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our What's New webinar. So in today's webinar, we are going to dive into all of the latest features that we've released at CoderPad over the past 90 days-ish, discuss why it's important and give you a preview of how you can use it in your organization. We will also be diving into our roadmap so you can learn more about what to expect from us in the next couple of months, as well as a live Ask Me Anything. So if there's any questions you have for the audience, we will take them. So be thinking of them now, type them in throughout. That said, we do have Mike. Say hi, Mike. Mike is available. He will be taking your questions and sending them to us. So any questions, just make sure you submit them through the Q&A tab, not the chat. We may have trouble seeing them if you do this in chat. So make sure you submit them through the Q&A. All right, for today's speakers, I will go ahead and introduce myself first. I am Molly Lindsay. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at CoderPad. So what that means is I work super closely with our product teams, with Nathan and Frank specifically. But I also work a lot with our customers and users and speak with them a lot to understand where their challenges are, better understand their needs, and work with them to help them adopt certain features of our product. So, Frank, I will turn it over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Thanks, Molly. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time zone you are. Thanks for joining us. So I lead the product management team. And so hopefully excited to actually show some of what we've been working on and what we have planned ahead with you today, and partner closely with Nathan, our head of engineering. Nathan?
Hey, good morning, afternoon, night, middle of the night, wherever you are. So my name is Nathan. I am in charge of all of the engineering initiatives here at CoderPad. And so Frank and I work hand in hand, and we're excited to share the last couple of things that we've shipped with y'all today.
Yeah, great. We have some heavy hitter topics that we're going to be covering today. So again, part of this is ask us anything. So be typing in those questions into the Q&A pod, and we will take them perhaps throughout, but we'll probably save the majority of them for at the end. So the first topic that we want to cover today with you guys is some of the enhancements that we've been making around cheating prevention and detection. And I know from speaking to a lot of our users, cheating is top of mind now, I would say more than it ever has been before, especially with the increased adoption of AI, perhaps moving into different geographic regions where perhaps you are not located. Cheating is a top concern. So Frank, before we dive into the specific features that we have that you all can implement to protect yourself as much as possible from cheating, why don't you, Frank, elaborate a little bit more about CoderPad's philosophy on cheating and how we view cheating?
It's a great question, Molly. So I think, first of all, in spending a lot of time with you all, with our customers, with our users, we understand that different companies have different thresholds of even what you define as cheating. I think there are certain aspects that we could all agree are cheating, but then I think what recent advances in AI and other tools to help people in their jobs, it really surfaces the question, and it's similar to the type of question we used to get with math tests. I think we're all familiar with, is using a calculator on an advanced math test cheating, or is it just simply helping do the basics? And so I think it's, as we all are familiar with, certain classes, even as we were growing up, considered using a calculator cheating, and others were, hey, it's fine, and it's fine to use notes and open book. And I think what we're trying to speak to in our product is being able to allow you as a customer to have that different threshold as it befits you and your process and what you believe. Different regions have different perspectives, and different companies have different perspectives. I think for us overall, we start from a point where a lot of what we try and build into our product, which hopefully you've seen, is an increased realism. And so with that, we are trying to make our product surface as much signal as possible and allow you to ask, not, again, to come to our math analogy, not ask an accountant to do arithmetic and basic math, but to ask an accountant to balance the books. And so in engineer terms, a lot of what we're trying to do with our product is allow the more complicated, realistic question. And so with that, we can retain certain aspects. Again, looking at the map test, we all remember those comments around show your work, but get the job done using all the tools you would have. And I think that's kind of our starting perspective. We ask for more realistic questions. We allow more realistic questions. And I guess our perspective is to include all these tools, but allow you to turn them on and off. So we're starting with the perspective, we are gearing our product so that you can use a calculator and notes along with it. But if you want to take those tools away, you do have those settings within your account. And so certain aspects or features like IntelliSense, autocomplete, ability to install libraries and packages that you want, be able to use Gen AI directly in a pad. These are things people do daily. And so we've built this into our product, but you can, of course, shut all these things off. And so I think that's our perspective and how we built our product. And the other part of that is what we try and do is we surface signals. So we do monitor for copy paste. We do test for code similarity. We do have a proctoring feature, as Molly has a screenshot, to be able to monitor these other things. And you have the option to use those and to surface whatever suspicious activity that you're looking for.
Great, thank you. I also do want to mention, as we were planning for this webinar, the content and the talk track around cheating prevention detection can be a really big conversation. So if you actually would like a standalone webinar session specifically about like cheating and proctoring and how to implement it in your organization, just type into the chat or the Q&A like yes, webinar session, something to that effect. And if you guys are interested, we would be happy to do another session, deep dive into it. As part of this conversation, we do think it's really important. Frank had mentioned this earlier, that some organizations may consider something like IntelliSense cheating. Others may not even consider using ChatGPT in an interview cheating. So one of the things that we want to encourage you to think about during this presentation, this webinar today, is where do you in your organization draw the line of what's cheating or what's not? So Nathan, as we were preparing for this webinar, we got together and thought of like what certain components, activities people may consider cheating or not. Nathan, do you want to walk us through some of these? And again, in the chat, if you want to pop in certain things that you feel is cheating that perhaps we didn't mention here, or certain things you're perfectly okay with, we would love to review those after the webinar and perhaps have a deeper conversation with you about it.
Yeah, I mean, as Frank sort of alluded to, part of our job as a, full suite hiring solution for, technical and non-technical hires is to make sure that we're solving all of the cheating problems for all of our customers. And as you can expect, companies will have different perspectives on what cheating is and isn't. So this is sort of a list on what we've heard on both spectrums from all customers. So, one of the extremes is, we want our potential, hires to have all of the tools that they would have on the job. And the other perspective is we want to be as productive as possible and actually focus on the candidate's problem solving skills with minimal help, right? And so what this really looks like is some customers will be very, very eager to use our generative AI tools because, they allow their software engineers to use this on the job. Some have no interest in that and view that is cheating, and literally everything in between, right? Some view copy and pasting as cheating, some don't. Some view spending time outside of the environment as indicative of cheating. We have customers who turn syntax highlighting off, all of our IntelliSense features off for interviews because they view that as a form of cheating for an interview. And then again, the other extreme is, we want to give potential candidates all of the tools on the job so we get a preview of, what they would be like working with, which is our perspective. My perspective is when we hire people, we want to get the most signal possible for how this person will interact with all of their potential teammates on the job. So we encourage customers to be more on that side of the spectrum, but of course our perspective is not going to be shared everywhere. So as Frank alluded to, we have this is all configurable, and we see all of the possible perspectives on both sides of the spectrum and everything in between.
Thank you, Nathan. And if you guys who are on the webinar are just thinking like, just show me the list of features that you have that I could turn on, I promise we are getting there. But this is such an important conversation. We have spent a lot of time internally talking through this and speaking with our customers about it. So I hope that this is a really helpful conversation. So Nathan, we were talking before, like that list in the previous slide is a great one to have a conversation as TA organizations meet with hiring managers, talk through these and be like, well, what do we consider cheating? So you can learn to draw that line, because we can certainly help at CoderPad help you enforce it through the different settings that we have in our product. So Nathan, I'm going to turn this back to you. Once you have your definition, your stance of cheating, what are some of the do's and don'ts that people should be aware of? Because it definitely affects the candidate experience, the way you approach cheating and anti-cheating features and experiences. What's some advice that you have?
Yeah, I mean, the most important one is be as transparent with candidates as possible. The last thing you want is a candidate to be surprised with something. You know, as soon as they get into their session, their 45 minutes, their hour with your team, or as soon as they get into a screen closer to top of funnel in your hiring process, you want candidates to know exactly what is expected of them, right? So be as clear and as transparent as possible. If you're going to give them all the possible tools within CoderPad to solve the problems that you're asking them to solve, be transparent about that. If you have a different perspective and you're going to be a little reduce that tool set a little bit, just be transparent with them so they know what they're walking into. That's the biggest rule of thumb I would be clear on. The other thing that's extremely important, you're going to have, everybody is going to have, unless you're doing all of the hiring yourself, you're going to have multiple stakeholders involved in your hiring process. So it's really important that, for example, your hiring team, your hiring managers specifically, is working very, very closely with talent acquisition, and that you are on the same page with what cheating is. Because if you get off of that route, then conversations become about, well, what is cheating and what isn't cheating? So be on the same page with all of your hiring team. And again, you'll probably hear me say this 1,000 times. You want to create an environment that is as close to working with this person as possible. So we encourage all of our customers to really give candidates the tools that you would give them on the job in an interview and in the screen. I would say things not to do. Adding proctoring for all assessments is not something that you would do. And in some geographies, proctoring is totally a norm and it's expected. In other geographies, it's absolutely not, and people could be, it may be a little bit off-putting to people to have proctoring turned on. So you want to be really aware and understand what the expectations are in your different markets you're hiring for. I would say expecting candidates to do anything that they wouldn't do on a job, you definitely wouldn't want to do that, just because it's, honestly, it's not the signal you want to get. And it's, again, it can be off-putting to candidates. Memorization, I am a huge proponent of, for as long as I've been writing code, we've had tools to help us remember things, and our tool sets are getting more and more complex over time. Don't expect candidates to have everything memorized. It's just not a memorization isn't a good signal for how well a potential engineer or somebody technical on your team is going to be able to solve problems, and therefore memorization isn't super important. So don't really expect them to do that. And then the biggest one, I've personally been parts of interviews where problems are way too complex and way too large to solve within the given time. So you want to give them a good bite-sized piece of content to walk through, and problem to solve with your hiring team. That's realistic, right? So if it's a 45-minute interview, you want to give them a problem they can solve in 45 minutes. You don't want to give them something that would take them, 2-3 hours on their own. So those are just some. There's a lot more, but those are the biggies, I think, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. And again, if you guys are appreciating this conversation, who are in the webinar and would like a full session on it, please just drop that into the chat. We would be happy to do so if you guys have the appetite for it. All right, so if you're wondering, just frankly, what do you have in the product that we can use to police this or monitor it or safeguard against it? Frank, do you want to walk us through some of the features? It's a big, long laundry list of everything we can view. Maybe some of the heavy hitters here that you definitely recommend our users check out.
Yeah, thanks, Molly. And by the way, do see the question related to some of this in the Q&A, and I'll try and answer that as I go through this. I guess there's maybe the usual set of features that you would expect in a product such as ours. So we do have, and I'm not going to talk through everything here, but again, at a high level, the ones that you'd expect: the copy paste prevention, the code similarity check, monitoring for leaked content online, IP tracking all around location, or I guess again the Q&A question. I guess for anyone who didn't see that, the question came: can CoderPad detect candidates who read from another screen, aside and write code in CoderPad screen, and using something such as a code writing velocity or eye movement? And so this is where we do have features such as average time spent average time that candidates spend on a test, or average time that this candidate spends versus other candidates. And so where we see, somebody able to submit a test in a very quick period of time, where somebody might have copied in a bunch of code or spent time outside of the pad in a different, or a pad or a test in a different tab. We do surface those automatically as part of our product. And so you'll find those. A little flag will appear next to your candidate in your test, and I'll show that here in a second, as well as you'll have the ability to actually watch the code and see where somebody has spent time outside or where somebody has copied in code. But before jumping to that, a couple things I do want to highlight from this list. And Molly has thankfully put new badges next to them. We have follow-up questions. So what this is we generate if you turn this feature on, we generate follow-up questions to make sure that the candidate can say, we're essentially saying, do you really know what you're talking about? And so we ask them to explain a little bit more where necessary, or where we detect suspicious activity. The second that we're going to be going in a little bit more depth as well is webcam proctoring. I guess a third thing that I do want to highlight we might not typically think about as a pure cheating detection and prevention is our question randomization. This is something that comes with all of our tests. It's at the very bottom on the left-hand side, but we automate question randomization as part of all this and as part of what we built into a product with the knowledge that randomizing questions, not showing a large cohort of candidate, the exact same tests every single time, is likely to help limit cheating and prevent cheating from happening in the first place. Beyond enabling these features, things that you can also do to prevent cheating through your process and keep the integrity of your process is honestly using custom content. And I don't think I can stress that enough, but it provides a better candidate experience. It's not some, quite honestly, a question that may not pertain to the job or the role or anything like that. It provides you better signal because you're actually asking the questions that you are going through or that your team is going through on a daily basis, a weekly basis. And effectively, those are more resistant to cheating. One of our close partners and honestly customers, Interview.io, if you've heard of them, did a study recently that actually looked at using custom content versus using content off the shelf, using different types of questions. I believe Mike will provide notes to their study, or rather a link to their study, and I encourage you to read it. But ultimately, the bottom line, and there's a nice little visual maybe towards the bottom of the page, emphasizing the use of custom content. And so again, one of the key things that's not even monitoring for copy and paste that you can do, and I understand it's difficult, we're happy to work with you on this, but is creating custom content for your specific company and for your specific roles.
Great. All right, so we are going to attempt to show this live. So Frank, hopefully you have your screen all queued up. Give me verification. Yes, I will stop sharing. We're going to jump into your screen.
Yes,
good.
Give me one.
All right.
Here we are.
Yes.
I believe you are seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, my view of the screen product.
Yep.
Okay. And so I guess where we are, we're within a test, and I've clicked on a specific test and I'm on the test settings, there's a couple submenus that I'm going to walk through here. And so what we have, within the CoderPad screen account is the settings on this specific test. And I guess what I wanted to draw attention to in this theme of cheating and prevention and detection are these features or toggles that you might find down here. And just so if you log into your own product right now, you will see these, in particular to the top two. The third one, you may or may not see, considering it's a little bit earlier in beta. But these are the features that we offer in terms of copy paste blocking, follow-up question, webcam proctoring. And so those are ones that we would encourage you, that are optional, but we would encourage you to use as you see fit. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say you need to turn on proctoring in 100% of cases, or there are cases where you may not want follow-up questions, but these are features that we, again, offer you should you need them or should you want to use them. By the way, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour. I did see the other question come through. Is there a way to add a practice test to a screen so you can send to candidates? It's actually part of the workflow here. And so on any singular test that you have, we can go ahead. I know Molly never loves it when I go way off track, but what you see here is the screen that when you generate a test to a candidate and they click and open the screen, they land on a page that looks just like this, and they have the ability to, every single candidate has the ability to click on tutorial to go ahead and start that. And so this does not start their test, does not trigger anything in any specific way, but this is a way to allow all candidates to be able to practice beforehand. Coming back on track to where I was, so there's a couple things we can see. So I was on the test settings and toggling on or mentioning how you can toggle on certain features. And so here's some data. We essentially sent some tests internally and had people take tests and try and cheat the system, if you will. And so what we see here, again, to emphasize the previous question that I was going over of time spent outside, what we can see is within code playback, this gray bar where we flag the candidate is outside of the environment. And so this is at a detail level, how we show this. And then at a more higher level, what we essentially do is put a little alert onto this candidate. And this lets you know that we detected suspicious activity, and you can come in and determine whether you deem that cheating or not. So hopefully that answers that question. More to the point around proctoring, because that's what we wanted to highlight. Here is a test that I'd sent to myself earlier, and what you will find if you turn on this feature is a additional tab here called Proctoring. And what you'll notice is a timeline of the test over the very long 2 minutes that I spent on this test. And you can see that we've highlighted that my face was absent for 12 seconds and what our algorithm says might be a different person. And so we can click into each of those, but I find that it's oftentimes more interesting to see all the images. And so we can see here is myself in various states of hoodie dress, if you will, and also put on hats and try to cover my face and just to highlight the different things. And so even just looking at this full gamut of snapshots, you might think, okay, well, this is obviously where somebody's trying to cover, where I was trying to cover the webcam. This is where I was maybe hiding my face. You might think that our algorithm might point out like, well, I put on a hat or put on my hood and maybe you're thinking that this is a different person or this is a different view or this is where I'm covering my face. And so let's go ahead and see actually what our algorithm surfaced. And so face absent for 12 seconds. Okay, so that was the place where I cover the webcam. And then a different person, this is where, yeah, I have enough of my face covered where we believe this might be a different person, or at least it's something to look into. And so again, essentially what we're trying to provide is you the detail and you have a signal. And certainly these systems can never be perfect. But again, we are trying to avoid maybe the very obvious, this is just simply a change in viewpoint, or even we're able to say, hey, this is basically the same person, but the more questionable screenshot pictures or images are being highlighted and surfaced to you. And we are allowing you to see the full gamut of all the pictures that happen on the test. And I guess even this one where I was partially obscuring my face was not signal, or we don't consider that suspicious activity. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to you, Molly.
Great, hold on. Yes, okay. Now, hopefully, verification, you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, all right, great, it worked. All right, so a couple notes for you guys on air about proctoring that I want you to know before we switch topics is it is currently in beta, like Frank mentioned. If you want a preview of it and to use it in your account, reach out to your customer account manager, anyone who you've been working with at CoderPad, or email support@coderpad.io. We'd be happy to give you a preview of it. If not, this will be available for enterprise or anyone on a custom plan once it is out of GA. All right, so we are pivoting to talk a little bit about data science. Many of you may not have known that you can now run your data science interviews in CoderPad. So if you're hiring any machine learning positions, data engineers, data analysts, data scientists, potentially even with what we're going to show you, perhaps someone in finance or operations with the addition of spreadsheets in CoderPad. So this is really fun. Also, I don't know why, apparently I'm a data scientist. Here I am doing my data science interview. All right, so as part of this, if you are not already recruiting for data science roles, we do want to have a conversation with you about some of the nuances about what makes data science interviews just fundamentally different than what you may be looking for when you hire a software engineer. So you're still looking for skills, but those skills take a bit of a turn. You are looking at how someone can take this raw data, explore it, and turn it into something meaningful that people can make decisions off of. That's not something you would typically find in a software engineer interview. You're looking for communication. Most of the time, these data roles, they don't just work in isolation. What they produce is digested by others in the organization. So how can they tell the story, string together thoughts? Do they understand the implications that something like this would have for the business? Maybe make recommendations off of it, maybe not. So if you're hiring for these types of roles, you really have to think fundamentally, what does that interview experience look like? And what should it look like? And what should it include? Similarly to software engineers, like realistic as possible. Put them in the position that they will be in any day when they are actually in your organization doing that role with the tools that they would use. And I'll give them the opportunity to explore that data in an unlimited way. Final output, if you use CoderPad today, especially interview, you're used to seeing like that code playback or on screen, actually, code playback and looking at that. With data science interviews, it's probably something different. You need something that is visual, where the candidate can tell that story in a visual manner, something that is shareable and shows a candidate's progressive work over time. Frank, Nathan, anything that you guys want to add here?
Yeah, I guess ultimately what we're trying to do with these extensions to our product that Nathan is about to show is be able to ask the combination of different questions that you want out of a data person, which again, there's nuance here and it differs slightly from what you're looking for from a typical developer interview. And so there is the overall foundational item of, do you have the technical skills to go get the data, run some analysis, essentially do the math on this data and aggregate it up in different ways. And that's, purely a technical component. How do you interpret and communicate those results? And so what we have enabled in our product is an ability to have that visual storytelling and be able to show a little bit of that. And then we allow all of this because we're using the actual tools, again, in this mechanism of realism or this theme of realism. For a data scientist or an analyst, even a financial analyst, uses inherently different tools. They're not coding on a blank screen in a terminal or in a IDE. Data scientists typically use Jupyter Notebooks, and so that's essentially the environment they provide. And financial analysts or data analysts or others also use spreadsheets, and so that's the other feature that we're going to cover here.
All right, Nathan, are you all queued up?
I am all queued up. Let me share my screen.
Let's see it.
Cool. See my screen?
Yep.
Thumbs up? Okay, great. So as Frank alluded to, this is a Jupyter notebook within CoderPad interview. I'm just going to preview something really, really basic. We expect that if you're interviewing a data scientist, you're going to have a much more complicated interview, but this is just within Jupyter, and we support full Jupyter environment. Looks a little bit different than your normal CoderPad interview UI, just because it's Jupyter within our environment. So I have pulled in, we've got a CSV. It's a very, very basic CSV. And I'm going to just show you some very, very basic Python code using pandas. I'm going to pull in this data frame, just show y'all. So we're pulling in the data frame. I'll just print it out really quickly. So just seeing the head and seeing what's in the first 5 rows of the data frame. And then you can I'm just using pandas here because it's one of the most popular data analysis environments that exist within Python. You can plot live. So just plotting this out really quickly. You can do much more complicated things, but this just gives you an idea. You have full utilization of everything you can do in Jupyter within CoderPad Interview, which is the primary environment most data scientists or data analysts will work in. So you can do full interviews here. Super, super happy that we have this, just because it was a gap in the product before we released this. So we couldn't do full Jupyter interviews. You just have to do Python code and pandas to do some of this. So you can do anything here that you can do in Jupyter. You can plot things. You can do much more complicated things. You can pull in much more complicated data sets. But this is just a taste of what that looks like. Molly, did you want me to jump over to Sheets as well, or are we going to do something?
Yeah, please give
cool.
Just a brief overview of Sheets, and then we'll move on.
Cool. All right. So switching over to Sheets really quickly. Let me move the interview question over for a minute. So this is a basic, if you want to interview somebody for knowing how to do Google Sheets or Excel skills that they need to show you to progress in your interview process. So I've just got these are just interview questions. We've got a couple of tables here, and you can do all the things you would expect to do in Sheets. And again, full playback is supported here. So if you're familiar with CoderPad interview, you know that when an interview ends, you get a full playback of all of the actions that a candidate took within a interview session. So just to show you how this works, you would do, I'm just going to pull an array formula really quickly from, let's pull it from last name. And so I'm just literally just pulling in a column from another one. Of course, you're gonna want potential candidates to do more than that, but this just shows you it supports everything you can do in Sheets. And again, this is all viewable in playback once you end the interview. So full support of everything you can possibly do in Sheets. Again, this is a sort of a gap in the product that we didn't have before we released Sheets support as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing screen, kick it back over to you, Molly.
Yep. All right, I got it. And both of those are currently available. So Jupyter Notebooks and spreadsheets in the interview environment. Go out and use them now. We do have one other major thing that we want to show you before we jump into roadmap and live Q&A. Reminder, ask us anything, just pop it into the Q&A chat and we'll either answer it live while we are doing the webinar or afterwards as well. I'm really excited about this one. I personally love the transcription feature that is currently in beta, should be available to you live to use in the product towards the end of the month. So essentially what this is it takes a transcript of the verbal audio portion of the live interview. So this does leverage our built-in video inside CoderPad Interview. So if you're not using it, certainly please give it a try. It is one less window for your interviewers to have open and your candidates to have open. Makes for a much more simple process. But essentially, when you use the built-in video, you can enable transcripts, which also gives the added bonus of giving your candidate and your interviewer closed captioning. The transcripts are available at the end of the interview and are matched. They are synced up with code playback. So you can see when someone's coding, but also the conversation that they were having during that time. So why transcripts and why I love it so much is it really, in my opinion, it has something for everyone, which is why I like it. So interviewers and hiring teams, we all know that you can't just hire someone just based on their coding skills, but it's how they interact with the team, how they approach a problem, how they communicate, how they ask questions. Today, just with code playback, although code playback is great, you are missing some of that context unless your interviewer was taking a lot of notes. So now it is there. It is captured and included with code playback. Interviewers, I just mentioned scrambling to take notes. It is really difficult to code with your candidate in a live interview, but also take notes of some of maybe the communication things that they witnessed and want to make note of. Don't need to do that anymore. It'll be there with transcripts. I've spoken to a lot of TA professionals who are like, this is great that this is the hiring manager or the interviewer's experience, but I, as TA, want to review these as well so I can help my interviewers be better interviewers. Not police them, but use it for coaching opportunities, which I think is just such a cool use of this. Mike, if you don't mind, we do have a poll question. If there's any other ways that you guys would envision using transcripts, I just mentioned 3 of them right there: interviewer, coaching, taking less notes, and more context. Type them in. We would love to hear from you how you envision you would use this feature. And then, as I mentioned before, the added bonus of having closed captioning for both your interviewer and your candidate, it really does reduce a lot of anxiety, especially when you have a fast talker like me, to be able to read what someone is saying during this. So we do want to show you this. Frank, I'm going to stop sharing. I believe you have an example that we recorded all queued up. I'll stop sharing. I'll send it to you so we can see what this looks like.
Great. And so here we are within a interview that has ended. And so what we have done is essentially held an interview and recorded the transcript to show you a little bit of what this feature looks like. And so just as code playback, as you're familiar with, you can play the code. Here I'm playing at a 4x speed, and we are seeing the typing that's going on the left. But as what you can see on the right is we have also captured and we're presenting exactly what was spoken at a different point in time. And because we are infusing both of these together, you have the ability to scroll back and forth. And as you can see, I am seeing what was coded in the left at that point in time, and even highlighted what we were speaking about. And we can navigate in different ways. So if I click to a different part of the transcript, I can then see what the code looked like at that point in time, or even what the program output was at that point in time. And we've also added a nice little search ability in here. So if I'm looking for the point in the interview that we were talking about substrings, because I remember that was a particularly interesting part of the conversation, I can search for it. As you can see, I can return it and then refresh my memory on what was going on there. Where was the candidate having maybe difficulty, or maybe where they had amazing insight, and this is really emblematic of creative thinking or different things that we're trying to understand and remember as we're recapping our interviews. And so what we hope here, again, to reemphasize, is provide you, both the interviewer and you who might be outside and not in this one-on-one interview, an ability to really flush out, remember, understand what was going on here, and to really get to those interesting moments, good or bad, that happen within an interview.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to take back screen share. So we covered 3 of our heavy hitters: cheating measures and proctoring, transcripts, and data science. There have been so much more that has been released over the past 90 days. We didn't put this on here. I wish I had. Mike, maybe if you could drop the link to the change logs in the docs that customers can access. You may not know this, but if you go to our documentation, there's a what's new section in there, and we have communications and instructions on how to use every new feature as they're coming out. Another great tip for you: when you're in the product, any screen, you'll see a bell icon with like what's new. Anytime you release a new feature, we always include it in there. So please, at any time, go review that. When you see it blinking at you, there's something new for you to be aware of and share with your team. All right, We are going to dive into the roadmap. There are some great questions coming in. We are going to take them live after we have a roadmap discussion, but make sure you're entering them into the Q&A. We will hang out and answer as many of them as we can. So part of this, we want to review the upcoming roadmap with you and what you can expect. Frank, as the owner of this entire roadmap, can you walk these people through what they can expect with us over the next several months?
Sure, thanks, Molly. And so I'm certainly not going to read what's on the slide. I think we can all read, but to highlight a couple high points with the products you're most familiar with, Screen and Interview, we have the couple features that we've just been highlighting, and so you can see them. I call it Proctoring. Molly, if you wouldn't mind with your cursor hovering over there, but Proctoring is currently in beta, and we plan to go to GA or general availability, general release in May for our larger plans. And so if that's of interest to you, again, we are looking for additional beta users and testers at this point. And then we plan to release that more broadly here in the coming weeks. And so that's with the major feature within our Screen product, and the major feature within our Interview product. Down below, you'll see the bottom transcripts. And so what we've just been talking about over the past few minutes, it's currently in beta with larger customers, and again, also plan to go to general release, general availability next month. Those are our current products that are geared towards this pre-hiring. What happens before you bring somebody on board? How do you test them? How do you assess them, evaluate them? We also have products to help you post-hire. And so these are products you may not be familiar with. And so starting with CoderPad Play, this is essentially branding the events that we've been doing for years. You may or may not know this, given our history of our company in both the US and in France. But we've been running events, running public team building events across tens of thousands of candidates, or not candidates, but tens of thousands of engineers for years. And so this has always been something in our DNA that's existed. It's how we've come up with our engaging games that we put into our screens. And the root of that is a lot of these events. More recently, we've been running private events for companies just like yours. We had a rather large event with a company you may have heard of called Fiverr, and we ran that very recently. And so we are continuing to run these private events. And so if that's something of interest to you and your teams, then please let us know. And the Summer Challenge is a reference to these more public events that we've continued to run. And so I forget how many years running we've had this Summer Challenge, but it's, I think, the 5th or 6th iteration of this. And ultimately, if you're wondering what these are different games and challenges to get your best and brightest in a bit of a friendly competition, and something that we hope is fun. And again, this is a little bit of where we prototype and then bring some of the games back into our core Screen product. The last thing I want to highlight in the lower right is Map. So this is a product we're developing, again, in this post-hire world, or rather post-hire part of the process, where we are augmenting our Screen and Interview products to help you manage the growth and development of your dev team in this, after hiring. And so how do you continue to understand and assess their skills and help them with that career progression? Those are the key things that are coming out in the next couple months, and hopefully you're as excited about seeing these as we are.
Right, great. Thank you so much. On the webinar, we're going to take your questions in just a second. I have one more slide to show you. But also for those of you who are on the call, we really want to help you. If you're excited about these features, start using them in your organization today. Mike, we have one last poll. It's not really a poll, but if you would like to talk to someone at CoderPad about implementing some of these features or best practices around them or questions about when they are available, just indicate yes. We'll be able to, on the back end after this webinar, reach out to you and make sure that you have the help and support that you need. All right, last thing, I'm just going to park it on this slide while we start taking some of our questions and answering them for you. We do have a series of events that are coming up. Mike is putting all of us out on the road. So if you are a frequent attender of conferences like Unleash, ERE, Talent 42, or RecFest, We will be there. Please reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation with you, like actually live and face-to-face. That would be great. And we do a number of webinars all the time about different topics that are relevant to recruiters, engineers, and hiring technical talent. We have our latest one up here. Mike, if you wouldn't mind, they can't click my screen, dropping the link to register in for that. That would be great. Highly recommend that you take the chance to register for that webinar. All right, we do have a number of questions that are coming in, so I will just take a couple of them. Frank, Nathan, if you guys see ones that you guys want to take, first one I think is the easiest one. We may have already answered it. For those of you who didn't hear it, is Jupyter Notebooks feature released? Yes, it is live. It is available for you to use today in the CoderPad interview product. So if you go to the language selection menu, you should see all of the Jupyter Notebook options that are available for you today. All right, let's see. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go next, Frank and Nathan?
I can do a couple of these. So one of the questions is, are Jupyter Notebook and spreadsheets actual embedded products, or are they approximated simulations? No, these are full products within CoderPad Interview. So this is not a subset of features available in Sheets or Jupyter. Everything that you're going to get in Google Sheets, if you log in through your Google Suite, you're going to be able to do in CoderPad Interview, and likewise with Jupyter. So it's a fully featured product within CoderPad Interview. And then another one is can CoderPad detect screen capturing? So I answered part of this in another question. So for us to detect everything that a candidate is doing on their computer, we would have to have an application installed, and they would have to give us permission to basically do a full monitor of everything that is going on their machine. We don't do that. There is no product on the market that does that, specifically because that would add a lot of friction to your hiring process. There aren't a lot of candidates who would be very enthusiastic to add monitoring software to their computer to do an interview for you. So because of that, we don't support that. What we do, and I encourage you to go check it out in the product. We give you a whole bunch of signals to be able to decide whether a candidate is cheating or not, whether that's them spending time outside of the interview environment, or copying and pasting large parts of pieces of code, or using code that we've detected somewhere else. So we also scan the internet for common answers to problems. So we will flag that for you. But no, we do not require candidates have software installed on their machines, nor does any other hiring product on the market, specifically for friction reasons. So I think we got that one. Then there's another question about Spring and Angular. Yeah, we fully support Spring and Angular. I would encourage you to go, if you're not already a customer, sign up for a trial, and you can test them out yourself. We have a fully featured Angular Spring Boot environment to do live interviews in as well. And then DevOps, we don't have Docker, but we have a variety of other DevOps oriented tools to do DevOps interviews with.
Perhaps slightly related to that, we did get a question. Frank, I'm going to put you on the spot. Maybe if you could pull up drawing mode. There was a question about if we have virtual whiteboard. We do inside the CoderPad interview product. And while Frank is pulling that up, probably have to stop screen sharing so Frank can do that. I did see another question about what's the difference between coding game, screen, and interview. And I will clear that up while we get drawing mode all spun up. So coding game is our community. They are the ones who put on those challenges that Frank mentioned. I believe there's 4 million developers in the community, probably way more than that, that are actively solving challenges in games every day to sharpen their skills. And then inside the CoderPad application, you do have access to both screen, which are technical assessments for you to whittle down the funnel, based on candidate skills, and then interview, which what you're looking at right now, the collaborative coding portion of CoderPad.
Yeah, and maybe to, again, scare Molly a little bit, but I always love to get people into the product. So I've opened up this pad. Anyone who's curious, who wants to come in and type or draw with me, click on the link that's in the chat. And yeah, we are in the drawing environment. We do have the capability, by the way, not just to draw things at the time of the interview, but we do have an ability to I guess, build drawing questions. And so we've seen a lot of our customers be able to do something like draw part of a systems diagram and use that as part of their instructions, or ask somebody, now based on this, how would you change or add to this bit of architecture. And so thank you, Nathan, for joining me in this pad. Maybe you can also draw something as well. But yes, this is the collaborative whiteboarding feature that is available to you all. So if you open up your own version of, or you log into the product as well, you'll find that on the left, and yeah, you can see what this looks like.
All right, we did have a question earlier about, we showed Google Sheets about support for Excel. Is that on the horizon, or Sheets only?
Good question. So right now, we don't plan to extend that to Excel. Quite honestly, as somebody who has used Excel extensively and run data teams myself for years, I mean, I think we're at the point where Sheets is very much, I'm able to do pretty complex formulas, and the same formulas that I was able to do in Excel when I was a hedge fund analyst. And so I think we believe that it's robust enough, and that's why I guess we're limiting this. That being said, if there is specific functionality that you believe is missing or that you would like to see, then I would love to hear that, because then that, we would look to how to incorporate that.
Great. All right. And then questions are slowing down. So if you have any more, you have a few more minutes to get them in. We did have a question about transcriptions and how long the transcripts are saved. Frank, Nathan, can one of you take that?
Oh, over to me. So all data within CoderPad, we're fully compliant with CCPA and GDPR. So we comply to all of those laws. So all of the good, like CCPA, right to be forgotten, all of that stuff, we're fully compliant with all of that. If you're a customer, we will keep them just like any other thing within CoderPad Interview. We'll keep them for as long as you're a customer, or you ask for them to be deleted, or a candidate comes in and exercises their right to be forgotten, to be compliant with CCPA. So they'll be there for as long as you want them to be, or somebody asks them to be removed.
Yeah, and that's an important point. I think I probably forgot to mention it too when we were talking about transcription. And if your candidate can opt out, yes, it is turned on by opt-in. So your candidates get a message when transcription is turned on, and they can certainly opt out, and we will not be recording the transcription during that interview. So candidates have full right of refusal as far as transcription goes. And as a matter of fact, with proctoring as well. All right, great. I think that was our last question. So thank you guys for joining us. I had fun with this. I hope you guys did too. Again, if you have any questions at any time, always reach out to us. Any of us are available. Find us on LinkedIn. You can always email support@coderpad.io, and we would love to talk more with you. All right. Thanks, everyone.